Oh, no. Oh, all right then. Explain more about quantitative easing. All right, I will. Right. So, imagine the world. We've got the castle in the middle. And we've got where the people live, all around the outside. So, a law comes from the big chief in the castle that they're going to do quantitative easing. So, the riders go out from the castle to all the villages. Oh, hang on. Here's Martin coming in again. He understands that. There's a difference between, because this is who I'm kind of doing it for. So, comment, just come in, I'll get it. So the riders go out with the orders from the castle to do something. So I understand the difference between the two concepts. What's the next step from there? Okay, the next step from there. Let's just establish the first step. On this comment thing, we've established the first step. So I'll establish the first step with you lot here. The castle send out the riders to all the villages with an order that they will tell the banks to give people bank account tokens for any government bond tokens that they have. They can do a swap. The riders make a proclamation and say, you can come to the bank and make a swap, and we're all good with that. And of course, this is what happens. So some of the people go to the bank in the village and give their government bond tokens to the bank, and the bank says, right, we'll write up your bank account token column, and there you go. So they walked in with government bond tokens, and they walk out with a new bank account token paper saying that they've got more bank account tokens. They've got the same amount as they came in with. Right? And that's the same for everybody. So the riders note down which bank wrote up the bank account tokens for the people, total it up, get the government bond tokens, put them in the saddlebags, and all go back into the castle. Okay? So they've come out and they've gone back in. The overall amount of tokens out there has not increased. They've changed. They've changed the type of token that's out there, but they have not changed the amount. Should we go with that? That's the first thing to understand. It's crucial to understand, and it has taken people years to not understand it. They think it's some sort of mumbo jumbo magic, that it must be wrong in some way. But it's not. It's the amount of token buying power, because you buy in the outside world, outside the castle, you buy with tokens. The amount of buying power has not gone up at all. That's the important thing. Okay, we'll go into the castle. All the riders get their bags, go up to the big counting room and give their information in, and the big bank bloke up there makes a note that the banks, information coming in from the riders, these banks have given out extra tokens in the outside world, so to this value. So then the big bank bloke writes in the bank's token book, you now have extra big bank tokens, and it's written in your book. There you go. and somebody from the outside world can knock on the door of the castle, be let in, come and check the big bank book, and it's been written up there that the bank has been credited with extra tokens. Okay. Second thing to understand is none of the vendors in the outside world, outside the castle, will accept big bank tokens. No, none of them. And you can go on the worldwide interweb outside in the world there, and nobody accepts big bank tokens. You can get your Tor browser out and go on the dark web, and nobody accepts central bank big bank tokens. They'll accept Bitcoin, but they will not accept central bank tokens. Why not? Why not? Because nobody outside the castle, the people, none of the people have any central bank, big bank tokens. So Amazon can put it on their interweb that they'll accept MasterCard and Visa and American Express and big bank, central bank tokens, but they're wasting their time because nobody's got any. Only the big banks got them. Shall I try and knock this out in one go? How am I doing for time? Only 6 minutes 46. Okay. I've done the idea of the castle because it should give you an idea that that is where the power lies. The riders can come out of the castle and do just about what they want out there and then ride back in again. The people can't get into the castle to affect what goes on in the castle. The power is within the castle. So, what I was saying this morning is that the big bank bloke can, let's say it's the king that issued the government bond tokens that the people outside bought with, what did they buy them with? They bought them with bank account tokens. Yeah, they played out there, and before quantitative easing they'd used bank account tokens to buy government bond tokens. You get slightly more interest with a government bond token. So if you don't want the capital for a good amount of time, you can get a bit more interest and have a government bond token, get a bit more interest than your normal bank account token. So that's what they did. Right. So what happens is that each year the government will, how should we do this? Let's just do it in normal language. Will pay out to the banks that, or tells the banks that they've got to credit the bank account token column of the person that owns the government bond. And at the end of the government bond term, it can be given to the bank and the capital amount will be given, and it's all torn up. But what happens now, because quantitative easing has been quantitatively eased and all the bits of paper have been rushed back into the castle, the big bank man can go over to the king of the government and say, and lay them all these government bonds that he's bought at their feet, at the feet of the king, and say, "Oh, look, master, what I've got for you." And the king can say, "Well, what use is it to me?" Because he's thick. And the central bank says, "Well, you've actually got to now pay me at the end of every year. And when these all come to term, you've actually got to pay me, oh master, oh master." And the king says, "Well, fuck. Well, right-ho then. Okay, well, I was going to pay that lot out there, but I'll pay you in here." Okay. So, big bank bloke gathers them all up, takes them to his office, but somebody goes to the king and tells him, "Well, you know what the law is about these big bank blokes? They kind of work for you." Goes, "Oh yeah, really? Yeah." He says, he's going to make a bloody fortune out there, you paying him the money and all that sort of thing. Because he just bought them with just money just written into the bank's ledger. He didn't do anything for it, just wrote them into the ledger. He says, yeah, you got a point there. Okay, well, what is the law? He says, well, when they make profit over just enough to keep the clerks up there, the money goes to you, the king. He goes, oh, well, good. Well, that's all right then, isn't it? So all the government bond tokens that have been brought into the castle at the end of each year, at the end of each term, who pays who? Well, the government, who uses the big bank's money, takes that money and pays it to the big bank, and then the big bank, because it's now profit, gives it back to the government, who has the bank account with the big bank. So they say, oh, fuck, come in here, let's sort this out. What's all this running about the palace with bits of paper for? You're the banker, you just keep all the sodding money. It's my money anyway, because I'll cut your head off if you don't use it right. And that's what quantitative easing does. It has taken the obligation for the castle to pay out money to the people and has kept it in-house, in castle, as it were. And now the government doesn't have to pay out for all those tokens that have been brought in. How are we doing? It's 12 minutes, but I know the obvious question is, but what about these bank credit things that are written on the big bankers' books? So what? Nobody can spend them, not in the outside world. Absolutely nobody. Banks can't spend them. People can't spend them. Nobody can spend them. All they're there for is if one bank in the outside world owes another bank some money, they send a message to the castle to say, he owes this money. And he says, are you sure? Yeah. He says, all right, I'll note it, take it off his book and put it in your book. All right? All right. And that's all it's for. They're just doing the counting for the banks outside. Now, I'm just trying to think of questions that might come in. But there shouldn't be any. That describes it all, really. You can confuse yourself with what's called the chinks, actual cash money. But that's a petty little confusion that really, it doesn't come into it. All it does is serve as extra confusion. Those are just other tokens that can be swapped for bank account tokens. You can swap them for cash tokens, but in the real world that we live in, or even they live in, everybody lives in, the chinks are really only used for criminal activity and used by the very poor. They really don't come into our calculations of quantitative easing, certainly not anyway. So that's it. Any questions? So what you should have been able to see, this inflation stuff that people talked about, where's it going to come from? Because there's no outlets. The power lies in the castle, and the castle can't be forced to do anything because all the power lies in the castle. The people had an amount of tokens to start with. They've still got the same amount of tokens, and they'll always have the same amount of tokens, with reference to the quantitative easing thing. In-house, it just means another load in another office. There was another load of books that said that the government was liable to give bank tokens, which are stored in a book over there, to various banks so they can write it on bits of paper for the people. Don't have to do it anymore. Who's the winner of quantitative easing? You could say the government, because they aren't liable to do some more paperwork. Or in the real world, you can say that they've made out like bandits, that they, what was the example this morning, 400 billion? They were liable to pay out 400 billion to out there, but they kept it all in castle, so really don't have to pay out that 400 billion anymore. Which is good, obviously, because the government does do a lot for, he's a benevolent, that word anyway, a nice monarch, and he's good to the people and does lots of good things and spends a lot of money, and that's now 400 billion that he won't have to pay out anymore, so he can spend it on nice things for the people, which has got to be good, isn't it? Good.